This is a sad BMW headlight. This is not a sad one. Today, I'm going to make BMW headlights less sad. So it's really hard to get this to come across accurately on camera, but my left headlight here has virtually no output, while the one on the right here has fantastic output. And the reason for that is I just retrofit the right one to fix a very common issue with E46s known as ZKW projector failure, where the chrome in the back of the projector housing melts and it is not able to project light anymore. This is pretty much impossible to see. If I'm sitting at a stoplight, the turn signal is brighter than the headlight itself. This, on the other hand, I mean, that's probably better light output and brighter than any other car I own. And honestly, not all that difficult to do. The first step to fixing this clearly is taking the headlights out. Fortunately, this is pretty easy. You just really need a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and an 8mm deep wheel on an extension. Corner marker's got to come out, and that's just the Phillips head down in the fender. You don't even have to remove this all the way, just loosen it until the light falls out. Unclip the electrical connection, and done. And then for the headlight itself, let's see. The first thing to do is to get this bottom trim piece off, and that involves, there's going to be a snap right here, and then two more snaps right in here. That pulls straight out. This side actually came out a lot easier than the other side. And since I don't have washers, this is quite a bit easier, but there is like what appears to be a big bracket for the washer mechanism that keeps the headlight from just sliding out. So that is like a Torx thing, a Torx slash 8mm that's in the back here. Yep. This is where my instructions differ from everyone else's, because this has been messed with. You can see here, what is going on down there? Why do I have a bonus fog lamp? I already have a fog lamp. Okay, sure. Why not? My instructions at this point differ from what you'll need to do, because this has already been modified to use a different style of HID. So this will be the plug for the high beam. There we go. And this is for, I believe, this one is for the auto leveling. And this is for the high-low beam switch. And this down here is the low beam. And then the whole assembly comes right out. Before I get into the actual low beam projector replacement, I wanted to address an issue I've been having with my turn signals. It's righty loose and lefty tighty. That's so weird. The turn signal will say that it's burned out, and then you go to use it and it'll come back on briefly. And the cause of that's going to be real hard to see, is the bottom of this bulb is melted flat, and the part that it contacts with is all burnt and melted and trash. So I have a new socket, part number 63136914122, official BMW part. Ooh, nice and shiny. And then I have a new Sylvania 1156 bulb to go in it. And every bulb on this car is 1156. It's fantastic. Brake lights, the turn signals, everything. It's just the best. And there we go. Cool. Slap that back in. Yeah, do love me some nice shiny new parts. So the headlight itself, the first step to getting it apart is to pull off this this gasket around the edges, and that just pulls straight out. Requires some coaxing. And then this front plastic assembly comes off, and it's really great because it requires Absolutely no baking or any of that nonsense. Just lifting up on these clips. And it will just start to work itself loose. I believe there's 6 of these. Okay, lens off, and that's all you have to do if you have a really foggy headlight, is just replace that lens. Set that up there where it can't get hurt. Now, we're really getting into her, and this just pulls from this upper left-hand corner and the upper right-hand corner, and off comes the shroud. 2 clips on the top, off comes that. And you can see here the weird aftermarket bulb and stuff that's going on. I'm just going to take that out. And this is kind of a pain later for me because you can see that's been all cut down and weird and not at all how it's supposed to be. Yeah, that comes into play. It's not too bad though. So at this point we're actually going to start separating the light assembly from the main fixture, and the first step to doing that is to run these adjusters all the way out. And there's actually a hex bit that I can use to do that way faster than twisting them manually. It looks like it's a 5.5 millimeter hex, and then we're going to go this way. You can see that pushing the whole lighting assembly out from the top. Now at this point, from the back, this will be nearly impossible to show on camera, but way down in there you can actually see where the mechanism attaches to the adjuster, and I just want to go in there and pry that open, and it will pop off. So now that that popped from the top, it's just a big pull on the bottom to pop it out from the auto adjusting motor, and then it pulls out of this pin over here, and it is free except for whatever cable is still retaining it. What's going on here? Okay, so one of the other problems here is that the wiring in these will just absolutely go to shreds. This is the wiring for the high and low beams, and there's absolutely no insulation left on it. So that's a lost cause, so I'm going to cut those wires because I don't need them anyway. So this is the projector assembly here, and you can see this burning here on the back. That's supposed to be a chrome coating on the inside there that reflects the light out through this projector lens. You can also see what appears to be mold growing on the inside of the lens. That's not really great, but the coating fails over time and the plastic gets hot, and then it just doesn't project light anymore. You can also see here the solenoid for the high and low beams. These are Bixenons, so the high beam is just moving a shutter out of the way of the beam of light to let more of it shine. So now we got to get a screwdriver and a bit, or a couple of bits, and take off this back bowl that is completely trash. Looks like it's just a T10 and a T20 to get these out. There we go. So there's the old projector. You can see how incredibly burned it is, and then this is all that the high beam does. Kind of neat. And since the lens flips the image, that's actually blocking the top half of the projected image. So now we've got this just rattling around in here. There's one tab here and one tab there. Just push with a flathead screwdriver. There it is. There we go. So that is the old projector itself. This is the old shroud. I'm going to keep this, get rid of this, get rid of this, and get rid of all the fasteners, because I have dropped my screwdriver. You're going to get hardware, this template, some wiring, the projector itself, and some hardware for putting in the bulb. So the first thing we're going to need here is the template, and we're going to take our old bowl here, And the template lines up with these two top locating pegs, I guess, and it sits just roughly even in the bowl. I already did one side of the car and I didn't do any measurements and it turned out great. So I'm gonna take this and then there we go. And that lays out nice and flat. You can kind of see it's just right up where the radius starts changing. You're going to want to do a pilot hole for sure. In this case, I'm just using a little utility knife to make enough of a divot that my drill bit isn't going to slip. And once that's done, appropriately sized drill bit, I just kind of went by doing that and going, yeah, that looks about the size of the main body. I'm going to stick this in a drill, and away we go. Behold the least precise holes in the history of ever. Yeah, it took off some of the chrome with it, that's funny. Now that those holes are drilled, out comes the projector itself, with the solenoid towards the bottom here. This is, we're looking at this upside down, that's the top of the headlight itself, so the orientation will be the wiring at the bottom. And screw in from this side. That is the projector installed. Now, this is a bit weird because the new one doesn't fit and the old one doesn't fit. They just kind of sit on here. They don't really snap into place. They just slip over it and get held in place by the additional shrouds that go over the top of all this. So just kind of, yep, it's just kind of retained by friction at the moment. But that is the new projector installed, and now this can go back into the housing. The first thing to do is to snap this onto this ball here. That's the up and down auto leveling adjustment. And then these here, calm down, these are the two tabs that I had to snap off of the upper adjuster earlier. So this will snap in and then that snaps in. And don't forget to make sure this is located within the upper adjuster on that side. So this is where this differs greatly from everyone else's experience. Someone went and cut the wiring that went to the factory HID on this and just kind of left it there. So I'm going to do something about this real quick just to get all this junk out of my way. This is the HID ballast. This looks factory, it's got all these plugs in there, but then this goes to the, what I assume is the factory headlight, but that I'm not entirely sure why it even has this second harness that goes to what is now the headlight. I don't get what all these superfluous and extra connections are, but I'm just going to undo these 3 screws so that I can remove this one that's not doing me any good. There we go. That's a lot cleaner. So there it is, all popped back into its adjusters. Now the next part is going to be sticking the bulb in here. We're going to need this spring and this wing nut looking guy. Those are going to go around our plugs for reasons that are just entirely intuition. I think I want to have this where that notch is because this has obviously been modified and doesn't fit like a stock one would. The spring is going to press down on that, and this is going to press down on the spring. A lot easier said than done. And with your 8th hand, that is our low beam HID bulb firmly installed into the projector. So now there's this wiring, and there's the question of the actual high beam. This high beam here, this is just a halogen flash to pass type thing. You pull back on the stock, it illuminates this briefly. When you push forward on the stock, it moves the solenoid out of the way. Now this is the wiring for the solenoid. You could just splice this into this green and red wire here, but my internal wiring harness is absolute trash. So I'm going to do the method using these wires that they gave me here, which is to install the solenoid in line with the factory flash to pass. And this means that I'll actually have to recode my ECU to use both when you push the stock forward, or in this case just use this one when you push the stock forward. So this is going to go here, and polarity does not matter on this. This guy now connects to our high beam bulb. Tuck that wiring away. And then this is going to go over here. Bit amazing how much room there is in these. Okay, and now we need to attach these together. And instead of soldering, I'm going to use crimps. So what I have here is a couple of butt crimps and some heat shrink. This is just kind of how I prefer to do things. I think it's a little more of a vibration resistant connection than soldering. Just take a little bit off with our wire strippers, load the crimp into the crimp tool, and then crimp it onto our pigtail side. Alright, and then load the crimp back up. Again, the polarity does not matter for these. The solenoid is just an electromagnet. It works no matter which way the current is flowing. Cool. I had a little bit of excess wire on that one, but that's not a huge issue. Slip the heat shrink over these. Nice, very solid connections. It grips both the insulation and the wire itself. So it's got built-in strain relief, which is one of my favorite parts about this. Hit that with the heat gun to make the heat shrink do the heat shrink thing. That is a wiring connection fit for a king. And back in the harness it goes with all this excess wire. Yay! Oh well, no one will ever see it except for me, and I'll know it's there forever. At this point, flip this back on around. This is all good. So now, the return of this shroud. That's the shroud. Now for the outer plastic shell. That appears to be on. One last piece for the front. Goes on how? There we go. And then around back. Just going to put my dust covers, and then this one, which is, it's had this cut out of it for the wiring, which is super nifty. I'm just going to bolt this back on, and none of this stuff was actually connected, just that wiring harness. I really don't know exactly what's going on under here, but the car worked, so I'm just inclined to leave it as it is. Okay, now I'm going to bring my Phillips, my 8mm, and my 5.5mm Allen head, and we're going to go put this thing back in the car, along with my turn signal. There it is. I don't like this much at all. It has absolutely no positive connection. It just kind of sits in there. But somehow it's worked for this long, so nah. Installation is the reverse of removal in theory, but actually it's just way easier to undo these two 10mm bolts so that you can actually get the stupid thing back into the car. It's Gotta come back out because we forgot to hook up the high beam. So that is the headlight back in. I still have no idea what this is or how you're supposed to get it in. I mean, I know it's supposed to hold the washers, but yeah. Oh, there's supposed to be a couple screws that hold this into the front. Those screws are missing. That explains a lot. I also don't think this was in there right. Whatever. At this point, let's start the car up and get a headlight aim and see if it works. That part's important. So there we got it. The low beams are working, and they seem to be working great. And I'll show you what the high beams do. When I pull back, the inner halogen is going to come on, and the flap is going to move away from in front of the low beam. It's not going to stay that way. And then when I push forward, nothing's going to happen because I haven't reprogrammed my ECU yet. You hear the solenoids clicking, and that's the low beams doing their thing. I haven't figured out a workable recoding setup yet, so that's coming in a later video. But for now, that's all the hard work done. The new headlight assemblies are in, and they're working, and they're level, and I got them aligned. Okay, I think. It's brighter, at least. Thanks for watching.